Hi, this is Sonia from An Enthusiastic Reader. Today I'm here to do a book tag. This tag was created by Mark at Book Time with Elvis, and this is the Somewhat Autobiographical Tag. I think I saw Brian do this last week or the week before. Don't remember what his answers were, and I haven't watched anybody else's versions of the tag yet because I just wanted to be able to go off and do it on my own. But I have some visual aids, or I have some aids, and so if I'm looking down trying to find certain things, that's why. So, because there's a lot to this tag, it's very involved, and there's a lot of different parts to it. So I have to refer to my notes because I can't do this one on the fly. Number one, what is the #1 best-selling book, fiction or nonfiction, on the day you were born? Have you read it? Okay, so I was born in the mid-1960s, and the book at that time that was the #1 bestseller is The Source by James Michener. I have not read it. I think the only Michener I've ever read is maybe Centennial, which is about Colorado, and I read that so many decades ago that I remember basically nothing about it other than I live in a state whose nickname is the Centennial State. It was formed in 1876. I don't remember anything about that book. Number two, what are some books, series, or standalone that immediately spring to mind when you think of your childhood? Okay, The Borrowers is a book that I still think about a lot. Another book I think about a lot is called The Children Who Stayed Alone. This was from the Scholastic Book Club, and this is not the original book that I had when I was a kid. I love that book. I read it numerous times, but it got lost along the way, but I found another one on like Books or Amazon Marketplace or something. And it's about a blizzard where the parents are away and the children are there by themselves and what they have to do to survive. And I reread it and I was surprised at how little the blizzard actually takes part in the book. And there's a lot more about the aftermath than there is about the actual experience. And I thought that was interesting because I only remember the experience. But this was an important book to me. Another book I think of is this book, which is another copy of a book that I bought because it's the Color Kittens. And I thought about this book a lot, and we had it when I was a kid. We didn't have it anymore, but I still remembered so much about it. So, and it's just all about these crazy painting kittens, but just look at those illustrations, and they really made a strong impression. And I was so glad to just get a copy of it to have. So anyway, another book I think of a lot is, and this is the original still have, The Little Wooden Doll. And this is a really old book. I don't know where we got it, but look at this. That's the title page. It was written by Marjorie Williams Bianco with pictures by Pamela Bianco from Macmillan, originally published in 1925, and this one is from 1968. So it's not as old as, it's not as old as, well, it's as old as I am, basically. In the Attic, look at that. In the attic, the little wooden doll had lived so long in the attic that no one even knew she was there. I love that layout. Anyway, this book really made an impact on me. Another book that really made an impact on me was, and this is the original book, is the Fireside book of children's songs. And I don't know where we got this, but all of the illustrations are like this with three color prints. Look at this. Good morning to you. And we had an auto harp. My sister and I had an auto harp. We did not know how to play, but we would read these chords at the top. We didn't know how to read the notes. I still don't know how to read music, but we would strum based on the chords and sing these songs. This is one of my favorite pages. I love that monkey. Anyway, that book made a huge impression on me. Other books I can talk about or I think of are the Little House books, the Nancy Drew mysteries, the Little Princess. So a lot of books that are, very common books to a lot of us. But I thought these were a little bit unique, and I still have a couple of the originals, which is surprising. School days are the best days of your life, apparently, but there you were forced to read some books you maybe wouldn't have chosen for yourself. Which did you enjoy? Okay, we went to a school in the 5th grade, and the teacher read to us a book called The Last of the Really Great Whangdoodles by Julie Edwards, which was the pen name for Julie Andrews. And I loved that book. It's for British siblings and world. They go to a magical world, kind of like Narnia. And a Whangdoodle I thought of him as like a moose-like character who would change his clothes based on his emotion or something. I don't remember the plot at all, but I absolutely love that book. Then in the 6th grade, they had different reading groups, and I ended up reading, what is the name of that book where the 3 animals run away together? It's like a cat and a dog, and oh shoot, I don't remember. If you remember, put it in the comments. But The Incredible Journey. I love that book. So as far as elementary school, those are the things that really popped out in my mind. Okay, were you independent or part of a pack at school? Did you join the reading fads of the day, or did you do your own thing? Well, I wasn't really part of a pack ever. We went to a different school almost every single year from kindergarten to 6th grade. So it was always a different group of friends. A lot of times I didn't really have a lot of friends in these different schools. I don't remember having a lot of friends, but so I definitely did my own thing. Reading was a huge part of getting through that time, and when it was something I really loved and clung on to. So I was an independent reader, and it was interesting to know that being a reader could really irritate people sometimes, that you just always have your head in a book and not, I don't know, playing outdoors, football or playing sports or wanting to be outdoors and doing things. We were definitely not kids that wanted to go outdoors. That was one of the worst things you could say to us, is you should go outdoors. I hated that. Just be totally furious. I can see the appeal now, but that's not something we liked. All right. Can you remember your first experience encountering sex in a book from when you were in your turbulent teens? We moved to a new house in the 7th grade, and there was some pornography up on the shelf in our bedroom closet that they'd left, the previous owners had left. And it was very explicit. One was a novel. It had every variation of sex that you could imagine. And I think that was a little bit too much for a 7th grader. But I did read it several times. Then as far as fiction goes, I think in 7th or 8th grade, I got a hold of Flowers in the Attic. That was eye-opening too, because it's what is happening with these siblings? It was just so perverse, just in terms of how mean and so much abuse was piled on these kids. And, they were forced to stay in this attic, and there was a lot of attraction between the brother and sister. And it was just, I think, more than just attraction, and wow. So it was a lot to take in, but I remember bringing it to school and us standing around reading it in the courtyard. Clearly, that's not a unique experience. I'm sure many people have experienced that exact same phenomenon. What is some of the first nonfiction you encountered? My parents, when they were married, had a lot of the Whole Earth catalog, a lot of books about crafts and farming, organic farming and organic cooking and that kind of book. So those were laying around the house a lot. There was also some James Thurber cartoons I remember made a big impact on me. There were always a lot of books and magazines laying around. Whose bookshelf was more fun to raid, Mom's or Dad's? Definitely my mom. She had all kinds of books around the house all the time. We were with her most of the time. If we were visiting my dad, he had a few books, but my mom had great books, and she would buy books at the grocery store. So had access to just about every book that she read, I read afterward. I can't really think of many exceptions. We shared a lot of books together as I was growing up. How diverse is your library? See below. All right. What is happening in this tag is that there's a whole list of genres, and you're supposed to say if you own any books in those particular categories. Well, I'm just going to quickly go through this list and tell you if we have any books. Arts and photography, yes. Biography, yes. Business, finance, and law, no. Calendars, diaries, and annuals, no. Children's books, yes. Comic books and graphic novels, yes. Computing and internet. I used to have thousands of different manuals and books about software because I was learning a lot of software, graphic design software and Word. And I used to know WordPerfect. I used to know how to edit the codes in WordPerfect when I did secretarial work. So I had tons of those manuals, but they're not necessary anymore. So I eventually got rid of them. We don't have any of that stuff around anymore. Okay. Crafts, hobbies, and home, a little bit. Crime, thrillers, and mystery, yes. Education, studies, and teaching, no. Erotica, yes. Fiction, yes. Food and drink, yes. Foreign language study and reference, I still have my Spanish textbook from college. Health, family, and lifestyle, some. History, yes. Horror, not really, a little bit. Humor, no. LGBTQ books, yes, some. Mind, body, and spirit, no. Music, stage, and screen, no. Poetry, drama, and criticism, yes. Politics, philosophy, and social sciences, yes. Reference, yes. Religion and spirituality, no. Romance, some. School books, yes. Science fiction and fantasy, some. Science, nature, and math, yes. Scientific, mechanical, and medical, yes. Sports, hobbies, and games, a little bit. Travel and holiday, a little bit. Textbooks, yes. Young adult, not really. So we have a pretty diverse library. I have mostly the fiction books, stuff about arts and culture. My husband has a lot of science, history. He has a lot of medical books. So he's got a whole situation down in the basement. We also have some collectible. Oh, I think I missed that was the first antiquarian, rare, and collectible. We don't have a lot of, I wouldn't say they're collectible or rare, but we have a lot of older books that we got when his mom died, when my mother-in-law died, and she had big collections of some older books and series and a lot of classics. So it's kind of fun to have those here still and look through them. What types of books do you find difficult to discuss? I think you can find something to say about any book you read, whether you liked it or not, but there's something to say about it. So I think it's on an individual book by book situation. Some books really don't lend themselves well to discussion because they're just very straightforward or formulaic, but most books I think you can figure out something. In what way do your life experiences and emotions shape your choices of reading? Yeah, I'm definitely a mood reader. I do have to be somewhat regimented because of being in book clubs or doing, planned reading with friends. But for the most part, it's based on emotion, what's going to feel good at the time. In much the same way as our tastes for food changes, so perhaps does our taste in books. How would you say your own reading tastes have evolved over the decades? I think I'm more open to reading different genres of books. And, maybe not wanting to read just the same kinds of fiction all the time. I do try and mix it up. I think that's healthy and wise to read a variety of perspectives and ideas. So I think I'm more open and less snobby. Unfortunately, we all feel down at times. Have you got a go-to book to raise you back up? I'd say anytime I pick up a book by Jane Austen, I feel better. Just the way she crafts language and especially the ones I'm very familiar with, which are my two favorites, Pride and Prejudice and Persuasion. This summer I'm planning on reading Northanger Abbey for the first time and rereading Emma, which I haven't read since the 80s. So I'm really looking forward to getting into those. If you have to choose one book or author to represent each decade of your life, who or what would they be? Now this was rough because, I was born in the mid 60s, so 66 to 76. I mean, that goes from being a baby to being 10 years old. So what I put in there, what I chose for this is Alice in Wonderland, but the Ralph Steadman illustrated version, which had very like grotesque drawings of Alice in Wonderland. It wasn't the typical Tennille, I think it was his name, illustrations or line drawings, but it was the Ralph Steadman. Like, I'm going to see if I can find something online and like insert something here, and we'll see if I end up doing it or not. But I remember my mom reading Alice in Wonderland to us from that book and thinking that we were too young to be seeing the illustrations. And then, of course, that made it all the more alluring to look at those illustrations when we weren't, when we had a chance. So that made an impression on me that illustrations could affect an adult and make them see if we would be eligible to read them or not. And it changes the idea of the story, perhaps. So that's, I'm going to say 66 to 76. Then I have 76 to 86. I mean, again, that's like 10 until 20. And a lot happens between 10 and 20. But I'm picking The World According to Garp by John Irving because I read that when I was about 15. I love that book. I still have incredibly good feelings about that book. But if you think about it, I mean, he had sex with a babysitter in the car. Garp did. Sorry to spoil this for anyone. And, you know, so, I mean, I was reading it when I was the same age as the babysitter. It was very interesting, very formative, probably. But so I would say that book really influenced me in that decade. 86 to 96, I'm picking The Secret History by Donna Tartt because that was the book that got me back into reading after I had kids. I had like a real dry spell for a while because I was having kids from 90 through 93. And so that was the book that my mom said, you should really read this. And I did, and it got me back into reading again. So I remember it strongly. 96 to 2006, I'm picking Any Human Heart by William Boyd. I don't know why I'm picking this, but it's one of my favorite books. I've read it multiple times. It's a life story, which I really love fiction that's a life story from, you know, young childhood to death. And that book, it's his diaries, the main character's diaries, and it takes place over, you know, in Europe during the wars and his participation in those wars and his love affairs and then his elderlyhood. And I just felt like I got to know that character so well. It really meant a lot to me. I really like the way William Boyd is able to construct novels. And 2006 to 2016, I'm picking The Thousand Autumns of Jacob de Zoet by David Mitchell. It's a fantastical, you know, David Mitchell has this little bit of fantastical thing going on, overarching all of his novels that bring them together into a singular universe. And I love this book. It's historical. It's in the 1600s. A Dutch ship goes to closed off Japan and they're on an island. Forgive me if I don't remember all of the actual details, but you know, they're supposed to be on this island for trading. They're not supposed to go into the mainland of Japan. And it's the interaction of all these different cultures coming together and these different genres. And it's an adventure story and it's a love story and it's about language and it's hilarious and scary. And it encompasses so much in one novel. I loved it. Okay. Number 14, of course, everyone is entitled to their own opinions, but how do you feel when people say reading is boring? I'm not going to judge anybody who says that reading is boring. It is boring to some people. It's not what's right for them at the time, or they never learn to comfort themselves with sitting down with a book. So, you know, hey, I can't make you do it, but I will just say, let's agree to disagree because it's an incredible pastime of many of our lives. And number 15, what was the number one best-selling book on the day of your most recent birthday, fiction or nonfiction? Fiction or nonfiction? Have you read it? I looked this up. It was The Red Book by James Patterson and David Ellis. I have no idea what that is. Never heard of it. Do not plan to read it. So I'm not a James Patterson kind of person, and he's got such a machine going with all these different authors writing with him, and he's not really, I don't think, participating. And it's a machine, and you know, great. It helps the publishing industry publish other stuff, but it's not for me. So, all right, this has gone on for a long time. Thank you for sticking with me through this journey. This is a great tag. If you're interested in doing it, you should. And yeah, I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much. Bye.